Welcome, everybody, to the Beverly's reading tonight. My name is Marty Atkins, and I'm the Adult Programming Coordinator for Peter White Public Library. I'm also the organizer for this year's Great Lakes Poetry Festival, which has been fantastic so far, and I think that Beverly is going to continue that tonight. I'm just going to thank a few different organizations and groups that made this possible. First, I want to thank the Friends of Peter White Public Library. They provide the live streaming equipment so that if you are watching this on YouTube, you have the Friends of Peter White to thank for that. I also want to thank the Carol Paul Memorial Trust Fund. We are going to have a concert tomorrow night as part of our event with Troy Graham, and Carol Paul is the one that the Carol Paul Memorial Trust Fund is the one that provides the money for that, and I don't know where I would be without the Carol Paul Memorial Trust Fund and the Friends. So a few other groups that have been involved in the Great Lakes Poetry Festival and the organization, the Marquette Poet Circle, the UP Poet Laureate Foundation, Pyre Publishing, and Travel Marquette, and Health and Happiness Magazine. All of those great organizations and businesses really support the festival, and hopefully we're going to see this continue on and on every year. Jonathan, on his reading on Monday night, said, I see this like Hiawatha. In 50 years, you're going to be able to say, I was at the second Great Lakes Poetry Festival. Me, I'll be in a wheelchair. You'll wheel me out. You'll give me a nice plaque, and then you'll just wheel me back off. Anyway. A few other things that I would like to make you aware of. Over on the side table here, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, those are broadsides that if you want to purchase them, they're $10 each, and all the money from that goes to the UP Poet Laureate Foundation. And then also there are two surveys back there, one for the Great Lakes Poetry Festival and also one for the City of Arts and Culture here in Marquette, who are doing an economic development survey. Have a chance, even if you filled one out before, this is a separate event, a new event, you can fill it out again. And we can turn that in and use that to continue the funding for these great programs. And just a couple other things. We're at the midway point of the Great Lakes Poetry Festival. So tomorrow night we have a really great event, Voices and Art Unlocked, which is an event that's in conjunction with the exhibit that's outside here in the lower gallery. We had many poets from the area who wrote poems inspired by the art that you see out on the wall out there. And all of that art out there was created by persons who are incarcerated or were incarcerated in the correctional system here in Michigan. And tomorrow night we're going to have that organization, the Creative Arts Prison Project, and a bunch of other of the members of that organization here, and we're going to have a poetry reading. We're going to have a concert with Troy Graham. He's going to be singing songs from his upcoming album of protest music, which I'm really excited for, and we're going to have some other speakers. So please come back tomorrow night at 6:30. That's when that kicks off. Alrighty. But now my job is to introduce my great friend, Beverly Matherne, the new UP Poet Laureate. So let's give her a hand. So probably most of you know who Beverly is, but let me tell you a few things about this person. I would not be standing here as a poet if it weren't for Beverly Matherne, and I think there's lots of poets in this country, in this area, that would probably say the same thing. Beverly has been such a huge mentor and supporter of poets and poetry in the UP and across the country and internationally as well. She's read in so many different venues. She has read at the UN. She has read at Shakespeare and Company. She's read in Spain. She's read in Wales. I would have brought her whole bio and read it to you, but that would have taken up the entire hour. So I'm not going to do that. But Beverly and most of you can know this already, but she is one of the most generous and gracious people that you could ever meet, and also one of the most generous and gracious poets and artists that you will ever meet. She will go out of her way to help you out in any way that you would want. She has helped me on so many times in my life with my work and my poetry. We have been poetry pals for, gosh, over, I hate to say it, like 35 years, something like that. Yeah. I'll tell you the story of how I became friends with Beverly Matherne. She was new to the English department at Northern, just new. I mean, she had just arrived, and I needed a mentor because I had just entered the master's program, and I had to find a mentor. And so I walked down the hallway, and I asked Beverly if she would be my mentor. And being the most generous and kind person that she is, she said, "No, I don't have time." She had just moved to the area, and she was still, I don't think she'd even unpacked all of her boxes at that time in her home. And then, so about a week later, I was having conferences with my students in my office, and this was when we were all down in the basement of the LRC of the library, where everybody could hear everybody else's business because there were no real walls, right? And she heard me talking with my students, and after one of my conferences, she walked down the hallway and she said, "I've been listening to you talking to your students and helping your students, and I think that we could really work well together." And that was the beginning of this really long and beautiful friendship that I've had with Beverly Matherne. And I'm so excited for her to be the new UP Poet Laureate. I think that poetry is in really, really good hands in the UP with her in that position. So please welcome to Peter White Public Library the UP Poet Laureate, Dr. Beverly Matherne.
Well, how wonderful. How wonderful you all came tonight. I'm so thrilled. I mean, there are some other events tonight that I was competing with, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I don't need this quite yet. So what I'm doing are ekphrastic poems, poems that are inspired by art. And it has a long tradition that goes all the way back to the Greek epic poets, but there's really no time to talk too much about that, except to say that a great example of ekphrastic writing occurs in the Iliad, when Homer describes Achilles' shield. And he elevates Hephaestus, who forged it, he's a blacksmith, to the status of a true artist. So that's one of our earliest examples. But what we're going to do today is look at art from Cajun and Creole painters who either are from Louisiana or were born there or have that heritage. And these poems were originally written for the Arthur Roger Gallery in New Orleans, and for a show they were having, and the title of the show was Mythologie Louisianaise, which is Louisiana mythologies. So the coming together of Cajun and Creole culture and myth and legend and that kind of thing is what you're going to hear tonight. And it's been such a pleasure to delve into that and to just swim in the influences of my own culture in these pieces. So the first one we're going to look at is the painting that's on the cover of the new book, and this is by Elise Toups, Arthur and Ernestine, Pentimento on Dauphine. And so there was this fabulous painter who came to New Orleans from France in 1868, and his name was Arthur S. Vivien, and he happens to be the forefather of this painter. And we were talking today at Jonathan Johnson's workshop about how when someone passes away, there's always kind of like a continuation or sort of a reincarnation of that person in children and grandchildren, and you can see this reincarnation going back a few generations, and I think that's really very interesting. Anyway, if you will look, and here is now where I need this thing. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this painting. I'm not going to go into detail about all the others because there's no time, but I really feel like I need to pay homage to Elise because she let me have this painting without asking me for anything. And I don't want to tell you what the price of this painting is, as it now hangs at the Arthur Roger Gallery in New Orleans. That was very generous of her. So, but if you look here, this is Arthur, and he is painting his wife Ernestine, who has died, okay? And here is Louise Bourgeois. How many of you know her? She's that wonderful primitive art style painter who came from Paris to New York and lived out the rest of her life there. Seated next to her is a costume designer. I can't remember her name, but her art is called wearable art, and you can see that there's a Viking headgear involved in this particular design. Up in the tree is Alice Neal. She's that Harlem poet who spent a lot of time painting in Mexico as well. And let's see. Here, this particular image comes from a 1940s photograph, and it shows a woman aging, and it represents the passage of time. If you look at her carefully, you'll see that she has gray hair, but if you go back in time, you'll see that she had red hair. And so she was playing with those kinds of things. And up here, this is Elise herself, a little self-portrait up in the clouds. And this is a very typical New Orleans shotgun house. And I just fell in love with that painting and thought it was perfect for this collection. So let me read that first one for you. Now, what she knows, she has letters and cards, birthday cards and things like that have been passed down to her, Elise does. And she knows from that material that Arthur and Ernestine loved each other very dearly, okay? So let's take a look at that first poem. And it's called Vivien Pentimento, after the painting Arthur and Ernestine. Pentimento on Dauphine. Actually, it should be in English, Arthur. But here's how it goes. Arthur painted her, still beautiful, even at death. Grief-stricken, he painted her again and again on the same canvas, never changing his mind, never changing the composition, wanting her to age with him. "I didn't want to miss that," he once said. Each time Arthur painted her, Ernestine shone from the depths, resurrected over and over, forever Ernestine. Once he completed each portrait, retired for the day, Arthur sipped Ernestine's lips, kissed the fire of her naked breasts. And I thought it might be fun to do it in French because it's the shortest one in the book. Then I give you a little flavor for French. Arthur la peinte, toujours belle, même dans la mort. Affligée par le deuil, elle a peinte encore et toujours sur la même toile, sans jamais se questionner, sans jamais changer de composition, voulant qu'elle vieillisse avec lui. Je ne voulais pas manquer ça, dit-il un jour. Chaque fois qu'Arthur la peignait, Ernestine rayonnait des tréfonds. ressusciter encore et encore. Ernestine éternelle. Une fois qu'il avait fini un portrait, il se retirait pour la journée. Arthur buvait à petites gorgées des lèvres d'Ernestine, embrassait le feu de ses seins nus. Et puis voilà. So the next I'd like to do is Dauphin. And the scientific name for Dauphin is Dauphin boudreauxi, which is a little bit of a joke because the surname Boudreau is as ubiquitous up down there in Louisiana as, say, Mackey is here. So that's intended to bring a little chuckle. But like you were saying the other night, Jonathan, I'm not home, I'm not in Louisiana, so I have to explain a few little things like that. Okay. This is a dramatic monologue. After the painting Dauphin by Joseph B. Darensbourg, or Berg. Let me see if there's anything I need to explain in here. I don't think so. Okay. It's no fun being a freak. Part bottle-nosed dolphin and part snapping alligator snapping turtle. To make matters worse, scientists have given me a new name. Dauphin boudreauxi. Dauphin for short, derivative of the French dauphin. Apt, I suppose, when you consider my origin in Cajun country. My dolphin brain is of considerable size, as you know. It tells me I'm sociable, agile, intelligent. But here I am, solo in a swamp, lugging this triple-ridged, barnacle-spiked carapace, this military accoutrement for a brute campaign in a brute time like that of Attila the Hun, say, or Ivan the Terrible. Note my colors, gray, brown, olive green, and the abundant algae on my shield for martial camouflage, of course. Sometimes I feel like a 36-ton panzer. Sometimes more prehistoric, a combination Stegosaurus, Scolosaurus, Gargoyleosaurus. God, I'm ugly. Most embarrassing is this. Despite my smart brain, I keep burying myself in mud, only eyes and snout visible, to ambush a frog or fish for dinner, maybe a snake. The prey minuscule, the coup never satisfies. My dolphin brain tells me I should have instead a sea lion or a fat fillet of whale, neither available in these degenerate waters. The discrepancy between what I am and what I should be is a catch-22. My turtle grandfather lived to age 70. I'm just 15. And don't stand a fighting chance for such longevity. Sometimes I wish I had grandfather's powerful jaw. I'd hack to pieces the humans who polluted the earth and its waters, drag them down into the slime, and let my deviant self feast upon them. Oh, to bow ride a boat slicing the Pacific. To be the sleek aerodynamic bullet that was my father. To spy hop into cerulean sky, Apollonian sun, with force greater than gravity. Then I thought I would do the last couple of lines in French. Does that work for you? Ah, être la balle aérodynamique et lisse qu'était mon père, afin de spy-hop vers le ciel céruléen, dans le soleil apollonien, avec une force qui surpasse la gravité. Okay. So Charles Barbier. Oh, you know what? I need to do something very important before I continue. I need to thank Marty Achatz and Peter White Public Library and Andrea Marsh for all that they do for all of us. And we're so grateful. And I also want to thank Ronnie Ferguson at Harvard Square Press for publishing my book. I want to thank him for his patience, because I'm horrible to work with. I'm such a perfectionist, I think I drove him crazy, but he was so patient. Okay. Okay, so here comes another dramatic monologue, and there are references to a Bob Dylan song in here, and you'll figure that one out when we get to it. And in the end, there's a little bit of French Creole in addition to Cajun French. And I did something that poets like to do to themselves sometimes, and that is, this poem is 24 lines of prose poetry written in one sentence. Okay, so let's see how that works out. Black and White, after the painting Black and White by Charles Barbier. I also wanted to mention that Charles passed away the night before this show opened, and we dedicated the show to him. I remove my mask, show my true self, a white boy from a town where one street separates white people from black people. A white boy who crosses the boundary against the wishes of his parents and theirs. A younger boy who learns from older black ones, stronger ones, the joy of wide open space in a country backyard. A white boy who, in that space, makeshift court, arches shots from way out, over and over. A white boy who finds open receivers with his crisp passes on the gridiron, who, on the diamond, hits with power, fields his position, steals bases. A white boy on the track who drives himself practically beyond what is human. A boy who idolizes Muhammad Ali, who loses himself in the music of the Beatles, James Brown, Bob Marley. A white boy who drinks from the water fountain marked colored, who knows water is water, food on the table is food. A boy who knows the black boy's cry for freedom is his own, who knows his sweat, his blood, or theirs, and their sweat, their blood, or his. A boy who embraces the passion, the defiance of Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. A boy, the only white in town, who joins the Congress of Racial Equality, who wears his core T-shirt with pride in the civil rights protest that day. The Plaquemines Parish Police breaks them up with tear gas. A white boy whose red eyes burn as he runs the country mile home, whose red eyes watch sons and daughters defy their parents, their senators. A white boy who, like the black boy, lives counterculture, dances, paints counterclockwise, knows that the old road is rapidly aging, for the times they are a-changin'. In a little snippet of French. Un garçon blond qui, tel le garçon noir, vit contre-culture. Un garçon qui danse, qui peint dans le sens inverse des aiguilles, qui sait que l'ordre établi disparaît, car thème yéyé a pu changer. Okay, I'm going to do one that's a little longer. Are you okay? Hanging in there, all right? It's called Swamp Witch. And the character in it, the little legend that this comes from is a New Orleans urban legend. And other writers have written stories about her, including Andre Dubus. And I, on purpose, did not read his, because I didn't want to be influenced by it. I suppose sometime soon I should go and look and see what he did. But this is my particular take on this urban legend, what Matt Frank in the English department at NMU and wonderful writer, calls re-legending.
Beverly, do you want to change the...
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Sorry. So this is after the painting Swamp Witch by Francis X. Pavie. Okay. Innocent lass from New Orleans, you fall in love with a married man. His wife lives far away, somewhere in the deep South. The man steals your trust, your body, compliant and hungry, then leaves for a diamond mine in Australia. You, destitute, your chest split open and bleeding. You think his departure is God's punishment, for you too are culpable in this sordid alliance. You resign yourself to suffering to pay for your crime. Struggling daily for meager sustenance, you peddle delicate christening gowns and intricate lace the nuns in a convent in Dublin taught you to make when you were a child. One winter, you almost die of smallpox. This too God's wrath, you surmise. Your perfect face, now riddled with scars, you don a thick black veil, set yourself apart, more loathsome than ever. Folks in the French Quarter turn away, call you witch when you attempt to sell your wares. One day, a voodoo priestess gifts you with a parchment of ancient recipes, love potions, teas, incantations, sends you to the mulatto woman in the swamp who shows you how to find, to name, to use for best effect what thrives there. Elderberry flowers to lower fever, root of lizard's tail to heal wounds, sassafras leaves to draw poison from snake bites. Once in the swamp, you remove your veil. Swamp dweller yourself, no longer despised, you are at peace for the first time since your abandonment, and your chest wound heals. You sing praise, give thanks to all that lives in the swamp, all interconnected, you in your right place. In spring you sing praise to you, great egret on angel's wings, and you, barred owl and owlets, and you, roseate spoonbills. Praise to you, water lilies, your deep yellow hearts, and you, blue irises. Praise to you, red-orange butterfly, nectar of swamp rose, your manner. Praise to you, mulberry, chestnut, and mimosa, and you, alligator, your armored body, your sharp tooth maw, and your growl that shakes the shore. You sing in summer, praise to you, mosquito, hawk, and morning glory, and you, creeper and cypress vine, and you, stilt, fishing in shallows. Praise to you, rat snake, sunning on oak stump, and all of you, raccoon, toad, bullfrog, and little brown skink. Praise to you, marsh hen, lily pads your highway on water, and you, white-tailed fawn, you, dappled thing. Praise to you, cypress foliage, blinding orange in fall sunset, and you, cardinal flowers in morning dew, and you, field of marigold and mist. Praise to you, snake-necked and hinger, copperhead and coot, and you, wild boar and black bear. Praise to you, tree swallows in thousands, your tornado landing at dusk, your blazing blue fading in the night. You sing in winter, praise to you, cypress stump, your icicles spearing water, and you, oyster mushroom, you ruffled petticoat. Praise to you, wood duck, your green crown and brown breast, and you, gray fox, guarding your den. Praise to you, 6-point buck, frolicking in high water, and you, bittern, yellow eyes among cattails. Praise to you, long-billed ibis, bright white against green palmetto, and you, cat-mewing nutria, and you, chorus frog, your mating call. Praise to you, ruby-throated hummingbirds, stopping to feed on your long flight. All year long, you sing praise. Thank God, you want to live forever. One day, you encounter an albino fawn, feeble beside his dead mother. Praise to you, little white wonder, you sing as you lift him into your arms. You suckle him with warm milk, put him to sleep in swaddled silk. Noting 6 buttons on his head, little white wing buds, you name him White Wings. All is well with White Wings and you, the little one, loyal as a puppy at your heels. But White Wings starts to grow up. Nights he wanders into the swamp alone. Especially dangerous, you think, when the moon is mere slipper, not bright enough to set his coat aglow, make him easy to find. One night, White Wings leaves you, does not return for hours. Sobbing, you search and search for him. Suddenly, a hunter's shot rings out. As the bullet enters White Wings' chest, pain fills your own. You swoon, your grief too great to bear. When you open your eyes, the warm breath of White Wings, now resurrected, warms your cheek. Blood bubbles from his torn chest. Suddenly, White Wings' little wing buds burst open. Fully mature, he is seraphim, you knowing full well the meaning of that word, 6-winged angel, the nuns having told you stories about them at the convent. You mount his back, embrace his neck. White Wings and you rise up and up, through mist, through blue skies, through blinding light, to gilded path of heaven. Sometimes, on moonlit nights, swamp dwellers, traiteurs, witches, or hunters encounter Swamp Witch, White Wings at her side. They say rays of light shoot from their bodies like those from the heart of Christ on holy cards. Sometime you may go there too, into the swamp. When you approach them, Swamp Witch and White Wings, and prove you are gentle, White Wings may nuzzle your cheek with his pink snout, and with his tender light heal your own wounded chest. A little bit of French. Un jour, vous pourrez y aller vous aussi dans la cyprière. Lorsque vous vous approcherez d'eux, saucières de la cyprière et ailes blanches, et que vous prouverez que vous êtes doux, Aile blanche posera son museau rose contre votre joue, et de son tendre souffle guérira votre poitrine blessée. Okay, we need a relief from that, don't we? So we're going to do one of my favorites. And the artist for whom I wrote this, here's the painting. He loved this so much. He actually sent me the painting. I was just thrilled. So this is after Prenez garde au Chaouigarou by Simon Almond. the title in English, Shawi Gahu, by the way, is Werkun, as in werewolf. And so in English, the title is Werkun. So here we go. I'm taking you to New Orleans during Mardi Gras season. And here's how it goes. Boy, I wish I had a little bit better light. Yeah, thank you. And the painting might suffer a little, but... oh, that's better, Marty. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. My name is Clovis Kuhn, but it should be perfect omnivorous eating machine because my greatest obsession is food, 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 all year round, food. Now, I don't know if I need to tell you that this werkun happens to be a raccoon, okay, and that the word for raccoon in standard French, if we have such a thing, is raton laveur, but in Cajun French, it's Shawi Garou, okay? So it's Shawi, which actually comes from the Mi'kmaq language, which we used to call that tribe once the Micmacs, but that's not politically correct anymore. So anyway, so here's what he has to say as I continue. Here in the swamp, I get tired of bullfrogs, crawfish, worms. So in early spring, I head to town. There's nothing like roadkill, like lapping the splat of a dead rat or doe. As weather gets warmer and skies bluer, I raid backyard gardens, small fields, before everything gets canned for winter or picked over for the French market in New Orleans. In March, my middle name is Ravenous. I devour all the young asparagus shoots, all the cauliflower I want. By April, I'm foraging beets and cabbage. By May, I'm laying waste eggplants, carrying off cukes. You'll see me plundering the blackberry patch in June, paws and mug stained purple. By August, I'm gathering figs, some sour and rotting. I'm looting grapevines. Give me rancid grapes. Give me overripe watermelon covered with mold. I'm raising the corn patch. Give me kernels, fat and crunchy. In September, October, I'm digging yams, demolishing collard greens. I'm pillaging persimmons in November. In December, clementines. And give me nuts, 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 my favorite. They fatten me best for winter. I get all the acorns I want in the swamp, but here in town I'm ransacking cupboards and pantries for pecans, for filberts. I'm raiding groves once aphids set in, caterpillars and larvae set in, boring holes in shells. Now it's February, and my cousin Alphonse Kuhn invites me to a king cake party in New Orleans. Well, I already got a natural mask. Who's going to know whether I'm a raccoon or a petit Frenchman in disguise? I get there, and all along the back wall of the dance hall are king cakes. Don't give me a little bitty piece, I say to myself, and run away with a whole cake, the one containing the baby Jesus, it so happens. I devour it, its oodles of frosting, purple, green, and gold, under the full moon, my favorite prowling time. The moon strokes my fur, settles like doubloons in my black eyes. I bury my nose in its beams, gulp them like thick honey, until I feel the white breath of Midas on my body. Next thing I know, I'm morphing into something I'm not. I'm growing taller. Something's happening to my ears. They're relocating to the sides of my head, like a human's. My teeth are getting bigger and sharper. My nails, normally petite and pointy, are getting longer and more hooked, like Madame Grandoise's claws. I see witches flying about, bats darting, wolves howling. I'm chasing Cajun boys and girls, the ones who tell lies, steal toys, stay out too late at night. Then I see the fiddler heading home after the dance. I'm right on his heels, biting his butt. Blood, blood, give me blood. I'm piercing his neck with my big canines, sucking more blood. Suck, suck, all I can get. I let him go, collapse, conk out a bit. When I wake, it's morning, and I'm so tired I can hardly walk home, but I do. I stumble up the road into the swamp, craving moss and sleep. Bullfrogs drill my ears. I sniff muddy air and vaguely remember something about sweet cake, frosting, and a tiny baby, its moon face smiling down on me from the stars. Un peu de français, a little bit of French. Je renifle l'air boueux et je me souviens vaguement de quelque chose comme du gâteau sucré, du glaçage et d'un petit bébé, son visage lunaire me souriant depuis les étoiles. Okay, how are you doing? I got one more. Is that about right, Marty? Okay. Well, you know about the Mardi Gras in New Orleans, correct? It's a big commercial affair, quite a big to-do. But the city does bring in millions. That's why they have it. And but there's another Mardi Gras in Louisiana. It takes place in the prairies, in what we call Bayou country in Louisiana. And it is a more modest affair. And let me move forward. I'm skipping that one just because of time. But it is quite traditional, and the characters in the this is called La Fête de Quémonde, and it's in I call my poem the Mardi Gras Run, and in French it's Le Courrier du Mardi Gras, and it's a tradition that goes back to the Middle Ages, and you can see even the costumes, like with the cone-shaped headgear like this, kind of harks back to the Middle Ages, although this is more modern, more cowboy-looking, I suppose. But anyway, this guy is the captain of this Mardi Gras run, and this is his whole entourage behind him. And there are stock characters. It's like a drama that takes place. This is the old crone, whose nose is very phallic. And by the way, it's a man in here. There's cross-dressing at both the New Orleans Mardi Gras and this medieval one. There's the bishop here, and this is an opportunity to kind of poke fun at the church. Oops, what did I do? Hang on. I touched something. There. This is a relatively recent addition to the entourage. She's the Acadian girl, and her skirt is in the colors of the Acadian flag. And then this is the loup-garou. Here you can see he has the kind of snout that he has, that he's a wolf, right? And this is what we call the flagellant. And anyway, so you'll get to know them a little better as we go through the poem. Let fog lift. Let live oaks, their branches laden with moss, their ghostly trunks come into view. Let the captain mount his horse, his gold cape bright in morning light. Let him bear his furled flag, split air with his whip, remind revelers who is boss. Let the captain's entourage fall in behind him. Let enter the wild man of the woods, with his unshod feet, his hunting horn sounding. Let the crone appear with her phallic nose and kerchief, her blue dress and flat old shoes. Old hag, old carrion. Let the wild bear come forward with his devil's ears and chicken wire mask, with his protruding snout, fringed suit, and fur cape. Count on him to remove meat from table, all Lent. Prohibit fleshly frolics, all Lent. Let the young girl enter with her yellow hen-like beak, her scanty top and gathered skirts of the Acadian flag, red, blue, white, yellow. Let the bearded man join in with his pointy green hood, his ochre-shaped nose, his wild red beard, bawdy old thing. Let the rougarou enter with his prominent wolf's snout. Count on him to hunt down those who break the rules of Lent. When the clock strikes midnight, beware. Let the bishop present himself with his gaudy damask mitre, pure white, trimmed gold, his red cloak and shepherd's staff. Let him poke all the fun he wants at church uppity-ups. Let the raven flagellant co-captain take his place with white unkempt hair and black fringed pants, with flowing cape and great yellow banner. Like young men disguised as magistrates of ancient Rome on the feast of Lupercalia, will he run through streets to ward off evil spirits, playfully flog women to make them fertile, ease the pain of childbirth? Come on, everybody, drink all the beer you can, stuff your faces with boudin, build your stamina for a hard run. Let the captain wave his flag at the first stop, signal he has received permission to take his party onto private property. Go ahead, he commands. Fiddle, accordion, guitar, and revelers erupt. Run riot to the front door, then house to beg for chickens, andouille, sausage, smoked sausage, for onions, rice, coins. A woman throws a guinea hen from her roof, the poor thing squawking, desperate not to get caught. Chase her, wild ones, through mud, through ditch, through wood. She's agile, she's fast. Don't let her fly into a tree. Let the brawl mount, the frenzy, loss of self, the ecstasy of it, like the wild hunt of time primeval, to stave off hunger, defy death. Then there's a little passage of time. The run over by mid-afternoon, the communal gumbo ready. Let everybody eat. Come tomorrow. It's 40 days and no meat. 40 days and no sin. So eat all you can. Drink all you can. Dance all you can. Be as bad as you want while you still can. Let the sun set. Let the raven flagellant take his post in the middle of the whole shebang. Come on, raven. Scourge air with your whip. Beat sin out of us. Make us clean for Lent. Allez, corbeaux, faites claquer votre fouet dans l'air. Battez-nous pour nous débarrasser de nos péchés. Purifiez-nous pour le carême. Thank you.
I'm sure that Beverly would take any questions if anybody has any. If not, you can just rush right back and buy her books. So, does anybody have any questions?
Toby.
Where does that take place?
This takes place in towns like Brobridge. It's a Pointe de l'Église, Church Point. It's in where Lafayette is, a little bit west of Lafayette and a little bit north. It's what we call the prairies of Louisiana, which is different from the River Road Cajuns, which I'm from, because we're along both sides of the Mississippi River. And I think more of our people came directly from France than over in the prairies, and so our French evolved a little bit differently as a result. But, yeah. This poem, it's called La Fête de Quémond. Pardon? Oh, the English title is The Mardi Gras Run. And actually in the book, the title is Le Courir du Mardi Gras. And that's what they call it, actually. But this particular guy, you see, Quémond is to beg. It's the feast of begging. And so if you've read a little bit about the Middle Ages, and folk customs and so on, you know that one of the things about Mardi Gras is that there was a reversal of roles so that a peasant could become a bishop, for example. And the rich, like the seigneur of a particular little village in France who had money, would actually pitch coins at the poor, and they were happy to get the coins. And so this quémander means to beg for coins. In this case, it takes in this case, it's begging for the ingredients that go into a gumbo, which is the celebratory food eaten at the end of a hard run. You know, it's just an all-out fabulous kind of festival, and people have a lot of fun. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Actually, I have two questions, might be related.
Yeah.
I love your use of repetition at the start of lines. Is that incantatory quality when you say, bless the most wrong good?
Yeah.
Or the other night it was take you back to,
Mm-hmm.
and you do it often. And I just wondered about that, your thinking behind that. What does that do?
Oh, it's supposed to heighten things. It's something Walt Whitman did a lot in other poets. It's anaphora, an old practice of repeating to build up.
And so you use anaphora for that purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Because it really does get you in deeper.
Well, good. And
And I wondered if you write originally in French sometimes?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And then when you do that, when you edit, do you change the English or the French? Because
That's such a good question, because I grew up hearing and speaking Cajun French with my grandparents in Louisiana, but it's a French that's passed on by word of mouth. I didn't learn anything about how to write French, really, until I was an undergraduate, how to read and write it, until I was an undergraduate at University of Louisiana. And then when I was in my early 20s, I went to Paris for an intensive course in Parisian French. But what you study in the classroom, even if you're in Cajun country, you're still studying Parisian French. That's the point of reference. So very often when I'm writing these French versions first, I'm expressing myself pretty much in Parisian French because that's what I know how to read and write. But then I go over it and I say, well, now let's see, where can I stick a Cajun word in here? Well, I do have two wonderful Cajun dictionaries. Dictionaries of Cajun French and Louisiana French. Now, what I'm writing in French in this book is really not Cajun French. It's pretty much Parisian French, but with a sprinkling of Cajun nouns and verbs and local color elements. Because I even use, for those of you who've studied French, how many of you have studied French? I even use the passé simple in this. And the passé simple is the literary tense, and it gives further polish and a literary sense to your work, Whereas in Cajun French, frankly, the passé simple does not exist. So, but anyway. And usually what happens is if I am in France and I'm doing research for a book, as was the case with the Cadillac book, all of that comes out in French. Because as soon as I get on an airplane and I'm heading to France, inevitably the person sitting next to me speaks French. And so I just start speaking French right there, and I just leave my English. and my English identity behind, which is a really nice thing to do. But when I'm writing in English, like when I write Cajun poems, when I write Kansas poems, Kansas has no connection to Louisiana whatsoever, except that they're my poems and I happen to be Cajun, you know what I mean? But I generally don't translate those into French. I would have no business doing that. And they come out in English first, of course. But these, actually, I knew that these works were going to go into a catalog at Arthur Roger Gallery that would be called Mythologie Louisianaise. So I just started writing in French. I just wrote them all in French, and then I put them into English because they had to be bilingual, because, there's quite a bilingual push in Louisiana, because there are lots of folks there, of course, who are of Francophone origin or French origin who don't speak French anymore, and we don't want to exclude them, But the other interesting thing about the catalog is that the French came first, and then in facing pages was Creole French, this wonderful translator of Creole. And then in the back was a separate little section with the English. And so that was written for White Linen Night. I don't know if you know that tradition in New Orleans, but on this one street in New Orleans, Julia Street, there's just one art gallery after the other. And on White Linen Night, we call it White Linen Night because it takes place in April, and the only thing you can wear is white linen, or else you smother. So you just go, you buy your wine or whatever you're imbibing is permitted, and you go from gallery to gallery, because every one of those galleries has a brand new show. And so that's what these poems were written for, was for a White Linen Night event. And the copyright to the work is mine, and the catalog, frankly, was not a juried editorial situation. And so I could take those poems and do what I wanted with them, because they are mine. And so I talked to the curator about that. He said, "Oh, of course, go ahead and publish them. They are yours. You can you can publish a book with those poems." So I just wanted to do that because I wanted to collect them into a book of my own. After all, they are my work, and I worked really hard on them. And the one about the swamp witch, I don't know if you can imagine, all that list of what grows in the swamp, what lives in the swamp. I didn't know the name of all those, and I had to do some pretty serious research to find the names of those animals and flowers and how to say. And in that case, I went with the Cajun French. I didn't try to do anything with Parisian French in that section. So always choices like that to make, that because you can write in different registers of French. I know in some of my short stories, in one of them, for example, I had a priest from France. Well, he would speak a different French from the local Cajuns, say. And then the narrator telling the story would speak in yet a different French. So you're looking at 3 different registers of French in one story. So there are a lot of choices that have to be made. Okay? Thank you very much. Let me just close this.
Beverly's books are for sale back there, and I'm sure she would be more than happy to sign any book that you purchase. Thank you for coming tonight, and please come back tomorrow night for Voices and Art Unlocked. That starts at 6:30, and then the reading and everything starts at 7 p.m. So we'll have some really wonderful poets here that night as well. Thank you for coming, and hope you have a really poetry-filled night.